You're watching WRKM Channel 22, number one in the region. The following WRKM broadcast is for mature audiences only, so put your goddamn kids to sleep and enjoy. Good evening. I'm Ralphie Martinez and this went in darkness. Tough week at the office for everyone, it seems. Layoffs are at an all-time high, it seems. That's what I've read. I'm well read, I think. Sometimes, maybe. But I have seen a lot of layoffs going on. Everyone seems to be a bit, not into it anymore. Civilization used to be fun. You go to your job, you make money, you do some cool stuff with your kids on the weekends. Everyone seemed all right. It was a fun experience for all for a while. I mean, that's what it looked like in those Disney movies. I don't know why I'm rolling up my sleeves. I'm not a man, even though I'm wearing a flannel. I'm a tough, rugged man. I'm speaking to the everyday man. That's why I'm rolling up my sleeves. So I can be just like the guys out there handling it, even though I am now home. And let's just say unemployed. WRKM is the only job I have left now, and I gotta do right by it. Sometimes you want to be the straight shooter, you want to say all the controversial things, then you realize sometimes, as our good friend Cody Rhodes displayed, you gotta drink the Mountain Dew Pitch Black. You have to drink the sponsored drink for the event to show that you are a company guy. So let's try to do that this episode. Let's try to be, at the very least, charming and not controversial, because we can't lose this job. Everyone else is losing their jobs right now. But then there are some people who are not happy with their job. Recently it came out, the Taliban is not happy. They are very upset. They are not liking how everything played out in the end. It was all fun and games when you were committing jihad and hanging out with your friends in the mountains, no women around to nag you. You were doing little secret missions and you were fighting a revolution. That's always fun, I think. It gives you something to do with the boys. It's a real team building exercise. But they're not happy anymore because we withdrew. And now they got what they wanted. They now run Afghanistan. It's all theirs now. We're not there. We're not causing any trouble. You got what you wanted. But the boys are not happy that they now got to clock in for work. It was, it was different when your boss wasn't over you watching your every step. You can say you carried out certain missions, or you can say you were at certain places. There was no real time to clock in for terrorism. You just did terrorism. You just committed acts of violence. You were able to hate women freely because there were none around. But man, are they upset now? Because when you get older, or when you get the big boy pants, you now have to do the job. They do not like the 9-to-5 life. And who could blame them? Who does? Maybe that's the common ground. we should have been meeting the Taliban on all these years. The 9 to 5 sucks. The 9 to 5 sucks. Let's pull up the article. From Insider, some Taliban fighters are sick of the 9 to 5 grind, complaining they've been sucked into urban life by working desk jobs to run Afghanistan. Urban life. That's the problem. Not their problematic ideology. The 9 to 5. Many Taliban soldiers are now in government positions after the Taliban seized power in 2021, but some are only just discovering the pains of living in the city, the Afghan Analyst Network reported. AAN. 5 young Taliban fighters described how their lives are now consumed by work and Twitter. Oh, wow. Look at that. In the end, we did win. We did get them to become more like America. They're sucked into the same grind we're in. The endless 9 to 5 being on Twitter. Oh, traffic, rent problems, scrolling Twitter all day, talking to women. It's all part of a strange new life for the men who conquered Kabul. That's rough, because let's be honest. I mean, women can be a bit difficult to deal with. Not in the way they like to portray it. I want to make that clear. Because they can be a bit, hostile to women. As annoying as women can be, we discussed it last week on our Valentine's Day episode. We are still dumb. So we have to be at least fair. But the Taliban doesn't know about being fair to women. Now imagine you've gone from hanging out with your boys, exploding things. Now a woman's asking you for your work. Hey, this was due. You know, this guy's asking for it. I'm only talking to you because he told me to talk to you. And now you're like, oh, back in the day, that guy used to just talk to me one-on-one. Now I gotta deal with this woman. And now she's demanding I hand in paperwork. How dare she? The Taliban captured their nation's capital and seized power in 2021. They had promised to then take a more progressive approach compared to when they ruled in the late 1990s, saying they would allow women more freedoms and treat citizens fairly. Instead, the fundamentalist regime has continually cut back on allowing women to attend schools and universities and has been killing protesters, well, as one does. Under Taliban rule, conditions in Afghanistan have returned to what they were in 2001, retro, before the U.S. invaded, retired U.S. General Jack Keane says. I want to get some of these quotes. Let's see. They portray how 5 fighters aged 24 to 32, well, that's a fucking demographic, have gone from watching the skies for drone strikes to grappling with everyday urban battles like internet addiction and difficult bosses. Because back then, you could shoot your boss. That was the cool part about the Taliban. You know, when you're out there and you ain't like the way someone was talking to you, bam, you handled it. You know, it was very mafia in that way. Now you want them to run a government? So far, so good, I guess. The social influence of living in an urban context on these Taliban is noticeable. Jesus. The rural and urban fighters and civilians, madras and school educated, madrasa, or, man, listen, I got sunglasses on because I'm a cool guy. So I'm going to read however I read, bro. They now rule women outside in public with open faces. Men whose female relatives live in Purda are now all missing the time of jihad. The Taliban used to be free of restrictions, but now we sit in one place behind a desk and a computer 24/7. 7 days a week. Well, if you're working 7 days a week, number one, have you heard of the weekend? You know, maybe if you let these Taliban guys, you know, out on the weekend, let them blow some stuff up in the desert, like a shooting range, you know, maybe they can get this out of them. You know, maybe they can get back into, you know, the Monday, Friday grind. A 24-year-old sniper now working at a police district. Well, of course he's bored. He's a fucking sniper. He's a fucking sniper. You know how cool it is to be a sniper? You have to lay around all day waiting for a target to move. You're constantly rested. Right? You're constantly rested. No one's pressuring you to do anything. Hey, don't leave him alone. He's waiting for that guy to move. Don't get in his way. You sure? Oh, I'm sure. Last time I even gently brushed him, it was a hullabaloo. Life's become so worrisome. You do the same things every day. Hazifa, like his four brothers in arms, is married. Okay, I thought it would be are married. I don't know. Listen, I'm not a grammar expert. Is married and has kids, according to the AAN report. All five were just children or weren't even born when U.S. led forces ousted the Taliban in 2001. Most had never even seen Kabul until 2021. They'd spent between 6 and 11 years fighting for the Taliban, joining when they were teenagers. All right, let me get to the sad part. Give me the sad part. Now when someone's nominated for a government job, he first asks whether that position has a car or not. We used to live among the people. Many of us are now caged ourselves into our offices and palaces, abandoning that simpler life. Oh, you see that? The trappings of materialism is hurting the jihadis. Maybe this was what we should have did a long time ago, left and let them do it. And now they're learning how it sucks. Oh, this is what adults do? Yeah. It's all fun and games when you're, what we'll do when we get there. It's kind of like Game of Thrones, right? The reason why Game of Thrones worked for so long is because the imagining or the dreaming of who could be on the throne, right? But the problem is once someone's on the throne, you got at best 1 or 2 seasons and then you're out. That's why Succession is so smart. Like they're going into season 4 with still the battle going on. They're ending in season 5 because they know whatever we decide on in 4, we got 1 season and we're out. Because going after the throne is always more interesting. It's why King Arthur's stories after him pulling the sword out of the stone just don't have that weight. Unless you're a real Arthurian nerd. But how many of those out there? I mean, look at the Clive Owen King Arthur movie. They didn't really get into his reign now, did he? They were just like, he's hustling hard, fighting this Roman Empire. But that's how it is. It's all fun until now you're the boss. I heard someone say that to me one time. They was like, either you own the business or you're an employee, because no one ever likes middle management. You can't win if you're middle management. You got to accept that. No matter what decision you make, you're wrong. Or second guessed. In some cases, you're actually wrong. So let's not take away what the employees are saying. Because if someone's complaining about you, maybe they got a point. We're connected to speedy Wi-Fi and internet. Many mujahideen, including me, are addicted to the internet, especially Twitter. Well, that's not good. Hazafa, the sniper working in the police, said he and his coworkers initially hid from women who approached him for help because he never in their whole lives have we talked to strange women. Oh, strange women? You mean women who have the confidence to speak to you? That's what makes them strange. What I don't like about Kabul is its ever increasing traffic holdups. Well, brother, have you been in New York? Last year it was tolerable, but in the last few months it's become more and more congested, which I feel about New York. I miss pandemic New York. Not saying I would like it to come back because, the trade-off is not a lot of people in the street. A lot of people died, but it was nice to have all that open space. You can get around quicker. Life's about trade-offs. Some of us want to be able to walk the streets freely. And sometimes that costs us quite a few deaths. There's a proverb in our area that money is like a shackle. Now, if we complain or don't come to work or disobey the rules, they cut our salary. You see what I'm talking about here? You see? People don't know what they want till they got it. They don't. The Taliban included. I thought they'd be over the moon. They'd be so happy. But then you think about the women part, and that's definitely going to put a damper on things. It's putting a damper on Don Lemon right now. He's having a beef, I think, with one of his coworkers on that morning show. Yeah, Caitlin Collins. Hey, he hates her. They got into it recently. So maybe Don Lemon should join the Taliban. Maybe Don Lemon should do a story on the Taliban, and they can meet, halfway. They hate their women coworkers. He hates Caitlin Collins. He also seems to hate Nikki Haley too, which is weird. Like, I didn't understand that. Let's pull that clip up.
So talk about age makes me uncomfortable. I think it's the wrong road to go down. She says people, politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
It depends. I mean, it's just like prime. If you look it up, if you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, and 40s.
Now I get what he's saying. Nikki Haley's, running for president. She's making age a thing, but did you really have to slam her like that? I bet he didn't ask those prime questions when Hillary was running, or Elizabeth Warren, or Katie Klobuchar. Listen, that's a last name and a half. Don didn't ask any of these questions then, did he? He didn't. But Don Lemon just hates women, and that's fine. That's fine. There's a place for him in the Taliban. Maybe he goes over there and goes, hey, I've worked this 9-to-5 grind before. I know what you guys are suffering through. Let me take over, and now I can fix Afghanistan. Maybe that's a solution to everyone's problem, really. We send Don Lemon to Afghanistan, and he now runs the government. He's hated women on a national TV scale. Why not help the jihadis in their current office problems? It's a thought. It's a solution. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying I'm smart either. I'm just a guy trying to make things work. Outside the government, that's where real economical solutions, free market ideas. I'm allowing you to marinate on Don Lemon as a member of the Taliban. It could work. It could work. Especially that. Here's the thing with Nikki Haley, right? Like, the bigger question would be, because I know she's like not white. I'll tell you that much. She's not white. I think she's got like a real, hold on. Let's look it up. Nikki Haley. All right. Namrata Nikki Haley. So I guess Nikki was the nickname, but what's her actual background? Oh, wow. So she's like Indian Punjabi. That's kind of dope, man. See, to me, I would have focused on that. But but people were also giving her shit for not using her, her actual name. So was going with the nickname. But if you consider this, my name's Raphael, but I'm called Ralph a lot. Sometimes you go with what's easier. To have to say Raphael every time you refer to me is a bit rough, Especially when you're complaining about me, Ralph is a lot easier. So make sure to do that. So when you write your Twitter thread about how I said women are annoying and I kind of understand why Don Lemon and Taliban should come together, I can't believe he said that. It's kind of offensive that he was saying women are annoying. And I'm going to break down the entire thread on the history of, misogyny within governments and TV so he can understand what he did wrong, and it's totally not unhinged at all. I'm just being educational. You're not. I'm not going to read that Twitter thread. I'm not. I'd like to, but I don't have the time because I only care about certain people's thoughts, Now, if you have a blue check mark, I will read the thread. Let's put that out there. I'm a firm believer in people who draw money, I will listen to, or have a following, I will listen to. But if you're a rando, I'm not going to listen to you. Why would I do that? I'm a WRKM star. And I don't listen to unhinged people. But when you have a blue check mark, you're no longer unhinged. You're a celebrity. You're an expert. I don't make the rules of society. That's how society works. But if you think you had a bad week, the Taliban and Don Lemon are having the worst week. Because women are ruining their lives. Like, it's crazy. Do we have women here at WRKM? Yes, we do. And they are delightful people. And I don't know what shows they're on this network, but I know I've seen them in The Office. So I know we're equal opportunity employer. And I'm also Puerto Rican, so opportunity. When we come back, the Taliban and Don Lemon aren't the only ones having an issue at the office. President Biden's kind of having a little bit of an issue with some stuff in the sky that's driving him nuts. More darkness. And when we come back, or in a few, go. I guess when they saw that we were advertising Kuglers again, Brokey Beer decided to come back into the game. Historically speaking, we hate Brokey Beer here. Brokey Beer has not been good in a very long time, but I've been told there is a new formula for the Brokey Beer brand, and I will be trying that live on air. Let's see if it's any good. And yes, I do have a bottle opener on my keys, but that does not make me an alcoholic. That just makes me useful in certain situations. Let's try this Brokey Beer. What? No fucking way. This is actually good. Bobby, I know you're underage, can't drink, but this is actually good, Bobby. Holy fuck. They did it. They made a good beer. Doesn't taste cheap at all. Like, I don't want to run away from, like, my problems when I drink this. Oh my God, this is not Trailer Park Swine. I know, like, back in the day, we used to say that Brokey Beer was the beer of wife beaters, but I can't imagine someone beating their wife drinking this beer. That's good stuff. This is more of like a hangout beer. Hanging out with your friends, talking about politics. This is, whoa. And you're still going to call it Brokey? Cheap beer for cheap people. But damn good taste. That, we're going to come up with a brand new slogan for them. Cheap beer for cheap people with luxurious taste. This is... I don't even know what to say. I've hated Brokey Beer for so long. And they did it. It's like watching your child get third place at a science fair. 'Cause it's not the best. It's not the worst. Maybe it's more honorable mention in third place. But it's definitely better than what they're normally capable of. They used to be the Kwame Brown of beers. Now, they're definitely at least Karis LeVert. Oh, this is great. I'm so happy. It's great that they decide to get their beer right. Right around the time I'm thinking about quitting drinking. Thanks, Brokey. That really came in handy now. But Brokey Beer. Oh, I hit the microphone. Look at me. The Brokey Beer is already taking over. I can't control it. No one can, apparently. All right. This might be a beer that makes me an alcoholic. Brokey Beer, proud sponsor of This Went in Darkness. It should be cheap depending on what convenience store you go to. Northern Bones Brewery. Good Lord, I'm stumbling because this beer is so good now. If the beer can change, maybe our country can change. But I doubt it. And we're back with more This Will End in Darkness. That brokey beer. Wow. I'm still surprised by it. I did not see that coming from them. But I don't think any of us really saw that coming from brokey beer. But none of us certainly saw the amount of things we shot out of the sky recently coming either. Apparently there was a Russian spy balloon. That's how it all started. We missed it last week because we were too busy talking about love for Valentine's Day, like a bunch of pussies. But no, love is not pussy. Love is beautiful, not other shit. And how dare we say blah, 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 blah. We're never going to be company guys, Bobby. This is just what it is. They're going to throw us back at 2 a.m. ASAP. Fridays at 2 a.m. was our original time slot. Now we're Saturdays at 10 because they thought we could handle the pressure of being semi-late night on the weekend and getting killed by SNL. Because everyone's really building up to that. They're not watching this on Saturday, but we have become a Sunday morning show, which is interesting, which to me works for heroin addicts and alcoholics. But yes, Chinese spy balloons were flying over, and apparently we watched it launch from where it originally came from, and the Chinese say they were only hoping for it to go over Hawaii and Guam, which interesting vacation plans for one Chinese spy balloon. But then they adjusted the radars, I believe, and they started seeing a bunch of shit just flying around. And go figure, go figure that we haven't been using our technology to the best of our ability. Now, some would say, well, to be fair, if we made it super sensitive, you're probably seeing a bunch of nothing. But let's not go there. That's boring. That's not fun. That's the Neil deGrasse Tyson way of looking at things. Because Neil deGrasse Tyson was on CNN with my journalist crush, Erin Burnett, which, how dare he? Erin Burnett is my favorite female journalist. Back off, bro, because she's my crush, all right? She's smart. I believe her when she says things, and she has witty comebacks. Back off, Neil deGrasse Tyson. We all know how you get down, my friend, allegedly. But he was on there, and he was saying, well, I don't believe it's aliens. He's like, why would aliens have balloons? And I would beg to differ. We built balloons. Why wouldn't they have balloons? Granted, they traveled several light years to come see us, but let's be honest, did people forget about Empire Strikes Back? The planet Hoth? Did the Empire come willy-nilly with their TIE fighters and all that? No, they sent the probe droids first. Those little black tentacle things, man. I used to have that toy. So if it's good enough for the Empire, good enough for the aliens, if you ask me. Who are we to outthink George Lucas? Maybe George Lucas had an inside track to how aliens would think. I'm not surprised. George Lucas is a genius. And I don't care what anyone says about the prequels. They were great films. Great films. If you take them as part of the 6. We don't acknowledge 7, 8, and 9. May 4th, we're coming with a May the 4th special you better be fucking ready for. Because I'm finally doing it. We're killing Rian Johnson that day. No, we're not. We're actually going to defend him a little bit and then destroy him afterwards. We build up our heroes to tear them down. But, probe droids. Maybe that was the way to do it. Maybe these are their versions of probe droids. Are aliens not interested in balloons? Seems like a weird thing to be upset about, Neil deGrasse Tyson. He also said, well, we have cell phones. How come no one has ever, gotten a good video on their cell phone? And I'm like, have you ever tried using your cell phone at night? Have you? Especially when you're out drinking outside a nice beer garden. The fuzzies are always there. Even the iPhone isn't that good just yet. We can get a fucking close-up of the fucking moon on a new Samsung S20, but we can't get a fucking UFO. There's just some things that we can't do. The zoom isn't that great. And no one's carrying around DSLRs. I know about DSLRs. That used to be my job. before they let me go. I always thought the podcast would be the reason why they let me go, but that wasn't it. It legitimately was money. I'm confused by it because I didn't make all that much. But after days of just shooting things down all over Super Bowl weekend, which was a great weekend to do it. If you're going to shoot things down, you know what country you have. A country of degenerate gamblers. Do it during the Super Bowl. Just they don't even acknowledge it. I'm watching the Super Bowl with my in-laws, and I'm looking at Twitter, and I'm watching Patrick Mahomes be great. Well, actually, let's give up Jalen Hurts his due. Both quarterbacks are fantastic. It's actually one of my favorite Super Bowls now because I love the back and forth. But I'm also watching, the UFO stuff on the Twitter because I want to know. I want to know what we're shooting down. Now Biden says we're not going to be able to recover that stuff that we shot down. So we should just, calm down with the conspiracy. But what he doesn't realize is the longer you don't show us anything, more conspiracy happens. The beautiful thing about conspiracy is that it's like, how do I put it? It's intellectual folk art. It's not, it's like, it's pseudo intellectual folk art. There are conspiracies that are out there, and I love conspiracies only because I think they show how the human mind operates. The less you give us, the more we can imagine, the more theories develop. Now, for me personally, some of my favorite UFO stories aren't the ones where people get abducted because that one's, listen, I've had sleep paralysis for about, I want to say 12, 13 years. And I've had some experiences on sleep paralysis that I even talked about here, I think a little bit a while back, that I thought were maybe supernatural, but you do a bit more research, you can see that maybe they're a little bit fake. So the abduction stories sometimes don't grab me. But the other shit, the military shit, that's the stuff that grabs me. And I wanted to pull up some guys who spoke at the National Press Club, because I was rewatching The Phenomenon recently, which is a fantastic documentary on aliens. To be fair, I tell people all the time, if you want to meet or if you want to have a documentary that kind of explains the UFO phenomenon in a way that's not nutty, that's the one that does it. Because The Phenomenon takes some of the best stories with some of the most credible people and throws them into a doc and goes, here you go. Like, here's people who you can't deny. Senator Harry Reid's in that documentary. One of our greatest senators, if you ask me, and that's the guy I fought hard to get a lot of those documents, released, which we spoke about, I think, as far back as episode 3, which currently is unavailable due to legal issues, but I think in about a year or two we'll be able to drop it. But we talked about how the CIA was investigating the government of Brazil, and during that time, while the guy is reporting on the president maybe cheating on his wife, he goes, hey, there's this story going around of people seeing a UFO. Little weird, right? I just thought I should mention that to you, just in case you're interested. And the CIA goes, we're interested. You go find out. Make that part of your mission now. And the guy's like, all right, I guess. I mean, I didn't think you'd be all that into it. So he axes around, and people essentially just say, hey, we saw a craft that killed some livestock, and it was just weird. And then, the CIA went, okay, we'll document that. Definitely interested in it. Kind of weird how you buried the lead, dude, but we get it, But we've always been invested in it. We've always been looking for it. And that's why when those CIA documents dropped, we did the episode on it, because it's one of the first times where they actually talk about it in a real meaningful way. Not like in a way where, well, it's funny because so Sagar from Breaking Points was talking about how Disney was commissioned by the government, or at least approached by the government, that when you write movies, the best way to make someone seem crazy is have them believe in UFOs and conspiracies and all that. So we can downplay that stuff as a kind of a psyop, to the everyday people. And psyop's one of my favorite words, but this is a legitimate psyop. So, Hollywood kind of took that up. Think about every movie you ever seen. The guy who thinks he got abducted by aliens, always portrayed as crazy, always don't trust him, he's a nut. So it definitely follows a level of logic that these things could have happened. But one thing, even like the movie Independence Day, right? Like, his name escapes me. And I don't want his name to escape me because now he apparently has lost his goddamn mind, dude. He was the father, right? Damn, hold on. I gotta pull this up. Roland Emmerich. I rarely ever bring up Roland Emmerich, but here we are. Not Judd Hirsch. No, Judd Hirsch was cool. Randy Quaid. Randy Quaid's character. Abducted by aliens. But the aliens that abducted him were the ones at Independence Day. Had the most knowledge of what was going on. No one believed him because he was a kook. Who believes anyone who got abducted by aliens? But yet he ends up saving the day. Go figure. Go figure. Maybe Roland Emmerich was on a deep end going, you know what, fuck CIA. I'm gonna defend the alien abductors on this one. Shout out to Roland Emmerich. Rare Roland Emmerich shout out. Because I think all of his movies are kind of the same, where it's two people are breaking up, but a disaster brings them back together. So I think all of his movies are all about the same breakup. And he's just trying to find all the ways in which he can get that girl back. Which kudos to him for dedicating his life to one breakup. Allegedly. But yeah, there are two cases in which military bases were attacked or, well, let's not say attacked, interfered with by UFOs. Let me pull up the first one here.
1967, I was a first lieutenant stationed at Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana. I was a missile launch officer. And on March 24th, 1967, I was on duty at what we called Oscar Flight. It is a underground capsule hardened site, about 60 feet underground. We had security guards topside. The main guard is called a flight security controller. My commander at the time was Lieutenant Fred Mywald, now retired Colonel Fred Mywald. Sometime in the evening hours on March 24th, I received a call from one of my topside guards, the flight security controller, stating that they had been observing strange lights in the sky, making odd maneuvers, and wanted to report it. I thought it was kind of a strange report, but I took it seriously. You have to understand we were protecting nuclear weapons, and the reports we generally got were very professional. At any rate, I kind of dismissed the call. He called back about 5 minutes later. This time he was screaming into the phone saying they're looking at an object, a red glowing object hovering just above our front gate.
And I want to make it clear, like, these guys who were talking are military dudes whose jobs were to report what they see without bias, without anything else, just what they saw. And a National Press Club on September 27, 2010, finally went, hey, these dudes are legit, and we should be listening to them.
This object was about 30 feet in diameter. He couldn't make out too much of the details of the object, only that it was pulsating, and he had all the guards out there. He was very frightened, wanted me to give him direction. I think I said something like, make sure nothing comes inside the perimeter fence. He immediately hung the phone up. I went to wake my commander, Fred Mywald, who was taking a rest break, started to tell him about the phone call, and just as I told him, our missiles began going into what's called a no-go condition or unlaunchable. Essentially, they were disabled while this object was still hovering over our site. our launch control facility. At that point, we went through our procedures. He reported back to the command post the incident. We also had some security lights, meaning security incursions at some of the launch facilities. So I called the guard back upstairs and directed that a security team be sent out.
Now keep in mind here, what he's saying here is that this orb or light or whatever this thing is disabled our nuclear weapons without even touching them. It was just by hovering around the base, it disabled our nuclear bombs. Small object, like we've been seeing all weekend. The things have been shot down. Just saying, we might want to consider.
At this point, the guard told me the object had left at high speed. Again, silent, no noise. The security guards got out to the launch facility and reported back that they were seeing this object again. They also lost radio contact. This incident terminated at that point. We reset the security alarms, but the missiles themselves were still disabled. We had to call in for maintenance teams to come out and bring them back up on alert.
So they shut down our missiles, and we had to physically get them back up to operation. Like, to me, that's a level of sophistication you can try to, throw away. You can try to say, hey, maybe the Russians have developed something that can do something like that. Maybe the Chinese have. But if that's something we can't do, and let's be honest, we are the most developed country in the world. We do have some of the best scientific minds, and we're not doing it, or we're not capable of doing that. That's a little sus. Now, maybe that one's a little bit rough for you. Maybe you're like, all right, that's a little odd. I don't know if I'm into that one. Here's another one that I think is just as good, with multiple people experiencing this phenomena.
My name is Charles I. Halt. I retired from the U.S. Air Force in 1991 as a colonel. During my military career, I was base commander of 2 large installations, and at the time of my retirement, I was in the Department of Defense Inspector General's office with total inspection oversight of all services and all service agencies. In 1980, I was reassigned from the Pentagon to RAF Bentwaters as a deputy base commander. At that time, Bentwaters was one of the largest tactical fighter wings in the world. We had the 2 base complex, Woodbridge and Bentwaters in England, and 4 FOLs in Germany, and 2 additional standby bases. In December 1980, early in the morning, several of our security policemen discovered strange lights in the forest in East Anglia, just outside the back gate of RAF Woodbridge. 3 patrolmen, Sergeant Peniston, Airman Burrows, and Airman Cabanasac, actually were dispatched into the forest and approached a craft. They reported it being triangular, approximately 3 meters on a side, dark metallic in appearance with strange markings. They observed it for a period of time, and it very quickly and silently vanished at high speed. Initially, I was not aware of all the details. I was only told of strange lights, and I was sure there was a logical explanation. 2 nights later, at the family Christmas party, we were interrupted. The on-duty flight commander for the security police squadron.
And let's be honest, who wants to be interrupted during the Christmas party? You know what I mean? Some of the stuff's going down at a military Christmas party, if you dig what I'm saying.
Lieutenant Bruce England came and approached the base commander and I. He was white as a sheet. He said, "It's back." We said, "What's back?" He said, "The UFO." Well, we still were, I should say, non-believers at that point. Since my boss had to do the presentations, I was tasked, unfortunately, to investigate. So I went home and changed clothes. I really expected to find a logical explanation. I took several security policemen with me, a disaster preparedness NCO who took an APN-27, a Geiger counter, and a camera. I also had my small cassette recorder I carried everywhere when I was on duty.
This dude was fucking prepared. Like, look at all the equipment he's bringing with him. He's like, all right, I'm getting this shit on fucking footage. I'm getting this fucking audio, whatever. This is what I want people to do when UFOs show up. Risk it for the biscuit. Say you get abducted. Say they destroy you. At least you're going down with this ship. You know what I mean? You're doing something that's honorable. Don't be a bitch and go towards the aliens, not away from them.
I was taken to the supposed site. We found indentations approximately 1.5 inches deep, approximately 6 to 8 feet on a side, and radiation of 8 to 9 times normal background radiation. Not enough to be dangerous to somebody, but significant. We also found broken branches on the trees. While we were milling around trying to make sense of the whole thing, one of the individuals with me suddenly spotted something. Off through the forest was a bright, glowing object. The best way I can describe it, it looked like an eye. It was bright red with a dark center. It appeared to be winking. It would sort of wink. It was shedding something like molten metal. It was dripping off it. It silently moved through the trees, avoiding any contact. It bobbed up and down, and at one point it actually approached us. We tried to get closer. It receded out into the field, beyond the forest, and silently exploded into 5 white objects. Gone. So we went out into the field looking for any evidence, because something had apparently been falling off it, and we found nothing. But while we were searching around in the field, one of the people with me noticed some objects in the sky to the north. There were 3 or 4 objects in the north, brightly colored, changing from elliptical to round, and moving at very high speed and sharp angular movements as though they were doing a grid search. While we were watching them, somebody else noticed to the south there were 2 objects just sort of hovering in the sky. One object approached us at very high speed, best guess is 3,000 to 5,000 feet, somewhere in that neighborhood, stopped directly overhead and sent down a concentrated beam at our feet. It was about 1 foot in diameter. The best way I can equate it is sort of a laser beam. We stood there in awe. Was this a warning? Was this an attempt to communicate? Was this a weapon or just a probe? Just as suddenly as it appeared, click, it disappeared. We stood there, really concerned. About that time, we noticed the other object to the south was sending down beams, about a mile and a half away over Woodbridge Base. We had 3 different radios with us, the police radio, the security police radio, and I had the command net. All 3 radios were functional, and we were talking to control centers. They were constantly breaking up, and we had great difficulties communicating, but we were able to discern that on the police and security net that some of those beams were either falling into or near the weapons storage area, and there's a great deal of concern. It really bothered me at the time. Every time something of significance happened that night, I kind of clicked on my little tape recorder and recorded it.
I just want to pause them real quick. Once again, the weapons area. They're highly aware of where the weapons are. That's what they're looking for. That's what I'm saying.
So I have a record of it for the next day. Unbeknownst to me, a copy of that was released by one of my coworkers several years later, and hence there was a lot of publicity. My superiors at the time were informed what happened. I briefed my boss. I played the tape for him. He listened intently. He was aware of the incident because he was monitoring the night before on the radio. He and several others were. He took the tape to the 3rd Air Force staff meeting the following Wednesday. 3rd Air Force was the Air Force headquarters at that time in England. Played it for General Baisley, the commander and staff. They all sat silently. The decision was it happened off the base, so it's a British affair. In other words, they were loath to get involved. So my boss came back and threw me the tape recorder, and I said, well, what do we do, boss? He said, get with Squadron Leader Moreland, who was the British liaison officer.
So I just wanted to get these 2 stories together for a reason. Because I got a theory, baby. That's what we do on this show. We have theories. Robert Salas and our boy here, Charles Holt, have witnessed orbs, or maybe alien technology, studying our weaponry. Now, Robert Salas would have continued that clip where it told you 10 nuclear missiles were decommissioned, or out of commission because of that orb. The week before that, another base experienced a similar thing with similar orbs. Now, here we are, Charles Holt, talking about these orbs are scanning the weapons of his base. I firmly believe the reason why we saw an uptick of all these nuclear, I firmly believe that I firmly believe that the reason why we're seeing all these UFOs, and it happens so closely after the nuclear bomb was dropped, is because they've always been watching. I mean, look at Renaissance paintings. People have painted UFOs into their paintings. I think that was the crossing of the Rubicon. Oh, they figured out how to manipulate atoms, but instead of doing something real with it, they're blowing each other up. You hear about UFO sightings at White Sands Trinity Base, where we tested our nuclear bombs. A craft came, landed, and left after doing whatever it was doing. They're highly aware of what we've done. Then think about it. I'd be keeping tabs on us too. Imagine you live in a really nice neighborhood, and one day one of your neighbors in his backyard explodes something. Huge fire. Big smoke. And then when he tells you, don't worry about it. You don't need to know anything that's going on with that. What happens in my house stays in my house, bruh. You're not going to keep tabs on him? And heavens forbid if he's darker than khaki. The racists in the neighborhood are going to have some other suggestions. They might think he's a member of the Taliban. You're not going to keep tabs on that guy. You're going to want to. And I think they saw that. I think they saw nuclear explosions and went, holy shit. The people we were thinking that they weren't going to be much of a big deal are now kind of a big deal. And now we got to keep a more aggressive tab on them. And they have been. Ever since then, multiple UFO sightings. Some people interacted with the aliens. But if they had the power to shut off our nuclear armament, it's because they know that the day they decide to interact with us, they cannot allow the possibility that we start throwing bombs. So that's why they're scanning weapon-wise, what are they able to do? Because if we show up, either we're invading or we're making contact. Either way, we need to know what they're capable of. And that's what they're doing. And maybe that's what they were doing this weekend. Maybe we just caught some of their scanners. Some of their weather balloons just checking things out. Seeing what we're up to. I'd call the intergalactic police on humans anytime, any day. The Green Lantern Corps would be on my speed dial. Did you see what these humans did? Got nuclear bombs, bro. Keep an eye on that. So that was my theory. I think once we broke the atomic plane, the rest of the universe went, well, we thought it was a safe neighborhood. It's not a safe neighborhood no more. And we ought to keep an eye on those humans, because aliens, in my opinion, are more than likely racist. One of the first transmissions we sent down into space was the Olympics that was held in Nazi Germany, and they probably learned some racism there. So good job, humans, you did it again. But I don't know, I think this is interesting. I think the idea that if this is all, alleged, if they're sending their probes, they realize we got to come at these people correct. We really got to pump the brakes and go, okay, what are they capable of? Because we know what we're capable of, but what are they capable of? And that nuclear bomb really got the rest of the galaxy a little concerned, maybe. That's a theory. Then again, it could be just Chinese spy balloons. When we come back, we'll jump into the Chinese spy balloon thing, because I think it's attached to something else that's happening in America currently. More darkness after this. What is up? Do you want to support This One in Darkness? Do you want to help this show grow? Well, that all comes down to you. We're asking you to check out all of our socials. Twitter, TWEID Show. That's on Twitter. This One in Darkness on Instagram. This One in Darkness on YouTube. Share the content. We're now on TikTok. This One in Darkness. Share the content. Get it out there. Grow the darkness. Recommend us to your friends and family. Let them know you're a fucking weirdo, because we're fucking weirdos over here. We need it to grow, and we need you to take up arms for this show, because Lord knows we are, and we'll be canceled any moment now. So we're just going to enjoy the ride while we have it. But the ride is only as good if we have an army behind us that's helping us take over capital cities. Now, I'm not saying we should do a January 6th for this will end in darkness, but I wouldn't be opposed to it depending on the capital. You know, maybe not the United States, maybe Tuscaloosa, you know, maybe Richmond, Virginia, somewhere small. Let's do a small takeover. See, this is a call to action. Now the FBI is going to come after us, but you know, maybe we want the FBI to come after us. Maybe that's good publicity, but hey, like, subscribe. You know what to do. You know what to do. Hook us up, baby. Give us all the views and all the attention. Peace. We're back. Let's crack open another Brokey beer. Let's give them their props. We're going to do 2 Brokies this podcast. How about that? See, that's all it took. Have a good beer formula, and I drink it on there. That's all it comes down to. Have a good beer drinking formula. Get the right materials in this beer, because Lord knows we don't have the right materials on our trains right now. What a segue. Terrible. Horrible. Of course, I'm probably sure you, good people, know about the train derailments going on all across the country, all conveniently being trains with hazardous material on it. And if I'm to believe that we have Chinese spy balloons flying over the country, could it be possible that we have a bit of a Chinese cyber war going on, where instead of dropping bombs on us, they can use these trains like bombs? And you're probably going, well, that's just ridiculous. These trains don't have that kind of capability. They're not going to ruin anything. They're just simple derailments. Well, maybe you didn't see the mushroom cloud from East Palestine, Ohio. Or maybe you haven't heard from the people of East Palestine, Ohio. Let's listen to them now. Courtesy of WHAS 11. The people of the Ohio town of East Palestine are upset that their questions are not getting answered.
This morning, mounting frustration and new legal action as people living near that toxic train derailment site in Ohio voice concern about their health.
How should us kids feel safe with the smell on our street?
My grandson, who's 11, has multiple rashes on his extremities. We went to Akron Children's Hospital with my grandson, and we're told that they do not have anything set up, a protocol yet, for testing for the cause of these symptoms.
It's been nearly 2 weeks since a Norfolk Southern train carrying an estimated 1 million pounds of vinyl chloride, a chemical used to make plastic, derailed, causing a fire that burned for days, prompting officials to carry out a controlled explosion. 5,000 East Palestine, Ohio residents were evacuated. They were allowed back last week, but many say they don't feel safe, fearing the soil and water has been contaminated. Some reporting sore throats, burning eyes, vomiting, and other symptoms, while local officials report thousands of fish have died in local waterways. Norfolk Southern decided not to participate in a community meeting yesterday, citing security concerns, saying, "We know that many are rightfully angry and frustrated right now. We have become increasingly concerned about the growing physical threat to our employees." State officials confirm new tests show the municipal water is safe, but many residents expressing doubt. ABC's Alex Perche spoke to Ohio Governor Mike DeWine.
You have residents that say they can smell something in the air, and because of that, it's hard for them to believe what's on the gas monitors. What would you say to them?
The only thing we can do is simply tell them what the scientists tell us, and that is that the smell can linger and be there long after when there's no discernible problem with the air.
Norfolk Southern is now facing a class action lawsuit claiming the train derailment released chemical weapons into the community. The company has not commented on the lawsuit.
And you listen to that governor and you realize that he's got his eye on the big picture here. We just gotta do what the scientists tell us. It's okay. Sure, when you throw rocks into the river, there's kind of a rainbowy glaze over it that tells you it's definitely poison. But the poison might be good for you. Maybe in a few years, some of those kids will be super soldiers. And in a weird twist of fate, in my theory, maybe China gets taken down by the East Palestine super soldiers. But it does seem a bit weird that all these train derailments are happening. Derailments are happening. And I always suspected that eventually we'd be in a bit of a cyber shadow war, where eventually, instead of dropping bombs, you find really creative ways of causing havoc. And what if this is one of them, allegedly? Not saying this is a real theory, just something I thought about while watching TV one day. What if we are in the midst of kind of a cyber war? It's a little convenient that after the Chinese spy balloons, now we're getting all these derailments. A little odd. And if you're Pete Buttigieg, you have to be tight, because you chose this job of being Secretary of Transportation on the whole promise of you didn't have to do anything. You didn't gotta do shit. Give some speeches about infrastructure. He hasn't even really talked about it. The last time he gave a speech, he was talking about diversity on a construction site, saying, have you been to the construction site? It's really white. And I'm like, what construction site in America are you talking about? It's usually filled with my homies, the Mexicans. Don't you appropriate construction culture. That's ours. We built this amusement park. You're enjoying it, Pete. But he took this job because he has no real talent in anything else. His own town didn't like him of South Bend. So he figured, all right, I'll do this job. You can't go wrong. I give speeches about infrastructure the entire time. I get to win over the everyday blue collar worker. Maybe he'll vote for me in the primary in the future. But now you gotta do stuff. You had the airline crisis, and now you got these derailments. Will he do anything? Probably not. Maybe what he should do is crack open a brokey. Crack open a brokey beer. Maybe that's what they should do. Hey, it's been a tough week. My entire town is poisoned. All of us will be mutated by the end of the week. Crack open a brokey. Have yourself a drink. Because you certainly can't drink the water. Now Pete's going to have to do his job. And I hope he does a good job because, it's kind of a problem when you do a controlled explosion of hazardous materials near a place in Ohio that's connected to quite a few of the rivers in America. So one might say all the water could eventually be contaminated. But of course, we're not going to go after them. Joe Biden's DOJ has already decided we're not going to go after them. We're going to dismiss some of these cases because, act of God. If you think Democrats care. If you think Republicans care, you have been watching this show. But I wish Pete luck because this is a tough day at the office. It's not a good day to be an Eddie Munster lookalike. And shout out to the company for not showing up to that town hall because they knew they deserve to get shot. This is not a call to action. No one should be shooting anyone. But if you shot the executive of the rail company, I wouldn't blame you. But good call on them not to go. I just can't wait for the Aaron Brockovich movie to come out of this. I just wonder who would get the spot. Maybe Natasha Lyonne. She's doing the whole woman I'm a mess thing with the gruff voice. Poker face. And then she can be witty I can't believe my life's a mess, but I'm going to figure out the railway system, She'll be charming and all that. Brian Cox, we can get him to be the railway executive because everyone loves to hate him. you know. And listen, Natasha's got a gimmick, good for her, but it's kind of the same gimmick, and it's kind of getting tiring, you know. I just imagine a trailer, man. Why don't you just settle, Natasha? Settle with the train companies. Why don't you come in and we'll give you some money? And her only response is for the trailer, nah, that's it. Like, you know, just that shit-eating grin. That, yeah, like that 40 cigarette voice. That's what we want now. She should be Erin Brockovich now. And she deserves it. She's been around for a good bit. She figured out a gimmick. Let's reward the gimmick. Let's put the belt on her. We do it in pro wrestling all the time. Someone's got a good gimmick. Put the belt on them. Let's make her a champion. Let's give her the Oscar. But we gotta get this movie made first. I don't know what we call it. You know. We can call it East Palestine. You know, just keep it, you know, just really Oscar worthy. Just name the location, you know. Or the waters of Palestine, because that can give it kind of like a biblical kind of joint to it. And Natasha Lyonne's back at it, you know, doing Russian doll poker face things. See, Brokey beer is good for me. It gives me good ideas. I'm gonna get addicted to these, aren't I? That's not good. But hey, you know, maybe we are in a cyber war, or maybe corporations are just doing this purposely to drum up support for certain bills. But it is a bit weird. Houston, East Palestine. I think another southern state also has derailment, and they're all hazardous chemicals. Or maybe we're just noticing that because the first one got reported, and now they're reporting all of them. I don't know. That's a logical way of looking at it, but I refuse to see logic. I think we're in a cyber war. That's my theory. No evidence. Then again, who can prove anything anymore? Who can prove anything? But it's a tough day at the offices of many people. And the key really is to not give a shit. Just really just coast on by. People will forget. It took the news to report this like a whole week. The New York Times didn't even touch it. And now that they're touching it, they're kind of, you know, running cover for the institutions about why there might not be a real investigation into it. So thanks, New York Times, for that. We just got to get by. Hey, we're all just trying to make it to the weekend, you know? That clock out at 5 on a Friday. I know the Taliban guy is the jihadist. He can't wait to clock out at 5 on Friday just to get away from these women. Don Lemon. Apparently he wasn't even on the morning show today. Or we're recording this Friday, but apparently he wasn't even on the morning show because those women are so goddamn annoying. He was happy to clock out early. I'm sure everyone investigating UFOs in the government this week, they were happy to clock out. Just got to get past this weekend of all the shoot downs. You know, Pete is just sitting there going, man, can't wait to Saturday. Because then I can forget all about this for 2 days. And then I'll forget about it some more. And then no one will bring it up. Then when they do, I'll go, my hands were tied. Bureaucracy. Then Natasha Lyonne will step in and solve the problem for him. Erin Brockovich style. What a country. What a life. Then again, what do I know? Maybe deep down we've always known how these situations, or this week, was going to end.